Hello, today you will hear a story about a man's revenge. Everyone in my family was a lawyer, and I also liked this job. Of course, it was quite hard to study. It was a long and exhausting job, but I liked it. Studying took almost all my free time, but I enjoyed delving into intricate cases and learning from the masterful moves of famous lawyers. I found interesting points in the legislation and studied the practical application of these laws. When I was young, I didn't have much fun. I didn't enjoy noisy parties with a bunch of drunk teenagers. I preferred to spend my free time in quieter places. Sometimes I would gather with friends at my friend's dacha, and I really enjoyed it there. The area was beautiful, with a flat green lawn and trees surrounding it. We would often have a barbecue and sit around the fire. In our group, there was a girl named Julia who was incredibly beautiful. She had long, thick, night black hair, and her brown eyes were mesmerizing. I was immediately drawn to her, and we became good friends with mutual sympathy between us. However, our relationship was not meant to develop further. I had to move with my parents to another city, which was quite far away, and I had to say goodbye to all my friends in Julia. At first, we tried to communicate long distance, but eventually our communications ceased due to our new responsibilities and obligations. My father gave me various cases to work on in order to gain experience, and I also spent a lot of time reading books and studying various documents. To be honest, I felt a little uncomfortable with the fact that I only focused on my work and had no personal life. With this sad thought, I returned home from the office. It was already evening, but it wasn't too late. The sun was still beautifully shining, casting a golden glow over the streets and adding a touch of magic to the end of the day. As I looked into the distance, I heard a familiar voice calling out to me. "Danny, is that you?" A pleasant female voice asked. I turned to see Julia standing there. "Julia, is that you?" I replied. "Yes, Danny, hi. You look great. Not that you didn't before, you were always beautiful, but now you look even more wonderful. How long has it been since we've seen each other? 5 years? Thank you, Danny. You look really good too. It's been 6 years since you left. Time flies, doesn't it? So what are you doing here?" "Yes, now I have a job here. And my branch in that city closed, and I was transferred here." "How long have you been here?" "It's about 6 months, I see. Why didn't you contact me? Would we meet?" "I don't even know Danny. We haven't seen each other for a long time. We didn't communicate, and I had a lot of work. I had to learn a lot of new things here." "I see. I understand you, especially about work. So maybe we can take a walk now unless, of course, you have other plans." I asked hopefully. "Yes, Danny, we can take a walk. Today I'm free." "That is great." "Okay, so now we're going to Taylor's home bake shop. Believe me, you've never tasted such yummy." "I see that you still watch your figure. I understand. But you definitely can't refuse these calories." "What, Danny? You've intrigued me. Let's go." And we went down the street, walked along the embankment along which grew a very beautiful alley. Then we turned right and walked along Zelania Street. This is where the bakery was. "Gloria, hi. So, we have 2 cakes with berry filling and cream." "Hello, Danny." "Okay, 1 minute. So take it and try it." "What do you say?" I handed the cake to Julia. "Good, Danny, I'm so hungry. Is this the most delicious thing I've ever tasted in my life?" Julie replied with admiration, biting off a piece of cake. "I told you." "Okay, now let's have a bite and go sit somewhere else. There is another wonderful place here that you will definitely like." We went to a restaurant located on the waterfront. There is always calm live music playing here, which was the best way to accompany our evening. We laughed and reminisced about the past. It was a very wonderful evening. After that evening, we agreed to meet again. Feelings flared up between us again. There was no way I was going to let Julia go. Our relationship was legalized by marriage a year later. I did not even have time to come to my senses, as 15 years had already passed in marriage with Julia. We lived in my house. I made pretty good money and Julia didn't have to work anymore. She happily took care of the house while I worked. I tried to pamper my beloved wife with gifts. I spared nothing for her to have the best. And in our relationship, love reigned. At least that's how it seemed to me. We spent our free time with Julia in different ways. We could just lie on the couch in front of the TV and watch movies, have picnics in nature, or go visit our friends. The only thing I didn't really like was Julia's interaction with Kevin. He was a very arrogant guy whose smile did not leave his face for a moment. Kevin had his own store where he sold various household appliances. We met when Julia ordered a bunch of new equipment, which we didn't need at all. Julia, why did you order so many appliances? I got a huge bill. I said indignantly, honey, I visited a great store. Yes, in general, the amount turned out to be decent, but in general it is much cheaper than it costs in other stores. Sacchini answered, yes, but are you sure that this is a high-quality equipment from the manufacturer and not a Chinese fake? Danny, the store owner, assured me that these are genuine products from the manufacturers. He just has very good discounts. He showed me all the certificates of quality. Something I don't believe in it. They hung noodles on your ears, and you are glad. Honey, I wanted the best. Then you should have at least consulted with me. Honey, well, let's leave it. It's in the garage and doesn't bother anyone. Believe me, these are great things. Please, let's leave it all. Okay, but in the future, please consult with me. Give me the receipts. All right, darling, here are the receipts. By the way, the owner's name is Kevin, and he lives not far from us. He knows that we live next door and invited us to visit. Honey, let's go. You will get to know him, and you will see that he is a wonderful person. Okay, let's go visit. See who this Kevin is. I met Kevin, but he didn't make a good impression on me. He showed more interest in my wife, which I didn't like, but my wife reassured me that I was the only one who mattered to her. And Kevin just had a certain manner of communication due to his trading ambitions. But soon the situation changed for the worse. Several times I came home, but Julia was not at home. She would leave without warning and return home late. Tree, how have you been, Julia? I asked at 3 o'clock in the morning when the light came on in the hallway. Bunny, I'm a little late. I'm sorry, but we had such a great time with our girlfriends that you can't even imagine. Julia answered, taking off her boots. Delayed, Bertily and silent. In Chun, you didn't even tell me. I'm worried. I'm waiting for you. And you don't even bother to pick up the phone when I call you. Or at least call me yourself and tell me where you are and when you will be home. Yes, honey, I'm guilty. The phone was in my bag, but I didn't notice how quickly the time flew by. And I also had to wait a long time for a taxi. You've told me this story 10 times already. It doesn't make it any easier for me. What's going on? Why are you acting like this towards me? Danny, please don't exaggerate. I did apologize. I still love you. You are my one and only. I just wanted to unwind a little sometimes. That's all. Can you at least warn me about your adventures so that I don't worry? Of course, dear. I'm sorry. I'll tell you everything. Just don't yell at me. That was the last time I tried to listen to Julia's excuses. But her words had no effect on me. I stopped trusting her. But from scratch, I did not want to get scandal. I needed to follow her, find out the whole truth about where Julia was and what she was doing without me. I had a pretty free week, and in my spare time, I started following Julia. I said that I was leaving for work, but I myself got into my car and drove not far so that my house could be seen. For the first couple of days, Julia did not go to her obscure parties. She went shopping and returned home. It was nice, of course. Maybe I was wrong about her, but on the third day, late in the evening, I noticed that a taxi had pulled up to our house. Julia hurried out of the house. She looked like a whore at a show. Bright lipstick, high heels, miniskirt. She had never dressed like that before. She must have been getting pretty wild, because I got home pretty late this week. I followed the taxi and we stopped at a restaurant. Julia got out of the car and went inside. The restaurant had large panoramic windows, and it was pretty easy to see who was inside. I saw Julia sit down at the table near the window where that bastard Kevin was sitting. A wild rage boiled up in me. I wanted to run up and immediately hit this bastard in the face, but I restrained my emotions, continuing to watch how sweetly they smiled and laughed at each other. It seemed like an eternity had passed, but they only sat in the restaurant for about an hour and a half. Then they left the restaurant and got into a taxi together. I followed them and they drove right up to Kevin's house, which was 4 houses from ours, very close. They went inside and I saw a light go on the second floor. There were no curtains on the window, but there was no way for me to see what was happening there. Then I remembered that I had a small quadcopter with a camera in my garage. I quickly drove to my garage and returned with the quadcopter. I raised the quadcopter to the level of the window and saw this disgusting picture. Julia, with a naked ass, jumped on Kevin. Then he put her on all fours and began to have sex with her from behind. Here you are, fucking bitches! I shouted. Incredible anger boiled inside me. I was ready to smash everything here to hell, but I tried to restrain myself. I realized that I would not forgive this disgusting betrayal. I felt that she was no longer my wife, but a lustful whore who constantly lied to me. Apparently, this was not the first time. I felt sick from the fact that this creature then went to bed with me. I decided to take revenge on these two bastards so that they would pay a high price for what they did. I remembered that I had appliances at home that Julia bought from this bastard. I knew something was wrong with this product. I handed over the product to the experts for analysis. It turned out to be a cheap fake sold under a well-known brand. After learning this, I hired a couple of guys who were skilled in surveillance and could easily enter any building. I paid them to break into Kevin's office, where I suspected there would be fake certificates and other documents made with violations. Soon, I had all the evidence I needed to destroy Kevin. Julia's birthday was approaching, and I always spoiled her with impressive gifts. This time, the gift would be no less impressive. As the guests gathered for the celebration, including Julia's relatives and friends, that bastard Kevin also showed up. I pulled out a large white piece of fabric to use as a projector screen and displayed our family photos. When everyone was gathered, I made a toast. The celebration took place on the street as the area near my house was spacious. I went up to the small stage, took the microphone in my hands, and called Julia to join me. Dear friends, thank you for coming to celebrate my beloved wife, Julia. You all brought her gifts, and I have one for her as well. You all know Julia as a decent and sweet girl who is the guardian of our family. She would never betray or hurt our band. I would greatly appreciate it if that were true. But in reality, Julia is a hypocritical whore who is not worth a damn. Attention, free movies? I shouted, pressing the button on the remote to play the video from the quadricopter where she was moaning and somersaulting with Kevin. What is this? Julia screamed. Bastard, how did you manage to record this? Kevin yelled. He jumped up from the table, directly under the stage, and tried to grab the microphone from me, but I delivered a precise kick to his chest, sending him back to the table and knocking over all the snacks and drink. Lie down, you bitch! I yelled, kicking Kevin again. That's not all, you dirty bastard. I will destroy you and make you pay for everything. There will be no mercy. And you dirty whore, enjoy the holiday as a gift, because I'm filing for divorce and you'll be left with nothing, just like in this video. And now for some fireworks. I shouted. Confetti popped, and an orchestra with trumpets and drums appeared from behind the house. Two people carried a huge sign that read, Julia is a whore, congratulations. I splashed an unfinished glass of champagne in Julia's face, then grabbed a large bucket of ice, which was cooling the drink, and placed it on Kevin's head as he stood there in bewilderment. I kicked him again. Now you know the truth about Julia. And now that everyone has gathered and gone home, the show is over. I kicked Julia out of the house that same evening, throwing all her belongings straight out into the street. I divorced her, and as promised, left her with a bare ass. I filed a lawsuit against Kevin and sued him. I received a substantial compensation for the fact that Kevin sold me a fake. He was sentenced to a decent term in prison for forgery and fraud. I was satisfied with my revenge. It helped me cope with my resentment and the realization that I was living with a nobody. But now in my life, there are only proven people in who I no longer have to doubt. Dear listeners, your support is very important to us. If you like our story, please like, comment, and subscribe. It's very motivating for us. We need your feedback to improve our content.